Hello, my name is Trevor McGuire, and this is my presentation on sensitivity analysis as a tool for capital budgeting. So, sensitivity analysis simulates what different independent variables can have on the outcome, and it's used to find opportunities, manage risks, and make proposals to the executive team. Some of the pertinent variables in sensitivity analysis are upfront investment requirements, expected revenue, final price of the good or service, the cost to run the operation, the expected lifespan of the product, and the total asset value. That is also called the salvage value. So that would be if, in case they go bankrupt, that would be the value of all the assets. And then the market fluctuations, this could be something like COVID, a pandemic, supply chain issue, a war. Sensitivity analysis is imperative in business practices because it allows team members to sit down and consider the what if, really go over the potential implications of different variables and outcomes, and it allows everyone to understand the risks and develop the contingencies to deal with the changes in those variables. And so basically this slide is going to introduce what sensitivity analysis does. It's a tool that shows how the changes in the variables like revenue, cost, or the taxes can affect the outcome of the project. We're going to use it to identify risks, spot opportunities, and develop a stronger proposals for the decision makers so that executive team is getting the best and most educated strategy possible. It's gonna make us ask, what is the most important variable, and what happens if sales drop or the costs go up, and allows the team to put their heads together and really develop a better idea for their strategy. So next we have the qualitative steps, and that's going to be to recognize independent variables that can affect the result of the project, such as volume of sales, price of goods or services, manufacturing costs, and market conditions. Identify a range of potential figures for each variable by leveraging historical data and industry expertise. That one is really important because you're never going to be able to know exactly what the variables are going to be. You're using your best guess. So that's why the historical data and the industry expertise or internal benchmark software is really going to come in handy. And then you're going to identify if any one of those variables are dependent on each other, such as the supply of the product and the demand. That is going to change how the variable is considered. We're really looking for only independent variables. Include decision makers across multiple functions to gather as many perspectives as possible. This is like a teamwork component, really putting your heads together to come to the best consensus on what the issue is, because different people have different areas of expertise. Consider risk outside the company control, such as market volatility, regulation changes, and supply chain disruptions. So like I was saying in the last slide, supply chain corruptions, that could be a pandemic or a war. Regulation changes would be like a new presidential administration coming in and changing the way things go. So on this slide, we're really going to focus on identifying the variables that could impact the project. And so we're going to define realistic changes for these variables based on the data and market trends and the opinions of our experts. But it's really important to consider how these factors might be connected. Like I was saying, some factors are dependent on each other, such as supply and price. And so this step is going to set the stage for actually crunching the numbers, which is going to be next. So for the quantitative steps, this is going to be determine what the ideal outcome would be, then project values for your identified variables. Maintain one manipulated variable at a time and make small and consistent changes to the value. That's really the application of the scientific method. You only want to manipulate one variable at a time, because the second you start manipulating more than one variable, you don't have the correct control. Then you're going to record the financial output for each change of the variable, one at a time. Illustrate the results in an easy to explain manner, such as tables and graphs. This is going to be really important for sharing your findings with the stakeholders and the decision makers. It needs to be easy to understand what's going on here. And then use the results of your analysis to determine the strategy and rank the variables on their relative importance. So we're going to want to set a best case scenario using our best estimates, the best we can do, such as like expected sales, costs, and the discount rate. And we're going to track those changes and use the charts or tables to see which ones have the biggest impact. And this is going to help us understand how sensitive the project is to each assumption. Risk and capital budgeting. Utilize sensitivity analysis to highlight the variables with the highest levels of risk. Center on variables whose impact is not easily predicted and has the greatest effect on net present value. Apply the risk-adjusted discount rate. This is a discount rate for the goods and services of the operation. It should be greater for projects that have high risks. Radars will allow for a conservative projection. So this is going to say basically that there needs to be some wiggle room as far as pricing is concerned. That way, if the demand isn't quite there, if it was miscalculated, then you can bring the price down and hopefully compensate for that. So the business is going to want to develop contingency plans and allocate emergency resources to account for uncertainty and mistakes in the estimate. So part of the planning is identifying what could potentially go wrong and create a plan, so that way if that issue arises, you're not scrambling. You already have a game plan for how to handle that, and you already have the funds allocated to compensate for that issue. You can leverage other tools such as scenario analysis and Monte Carlo simulation. These will help you identify which outcomes are the best, worst, and most likely. And with that Monte Carlo simulation, you can actually get like a distribution bell curve of the likelihood of different situations. So these results are going to help educate decision makers, and projections that are too optimistic are not good. You really want conservative projections. And based on the results of all this, you're going to want to manipulate the scope and the time frame of the project to make sure that everything is lining up. So sensitivity analysis is going to help us see which variables pose the most risk to the project success. We can adjust the discount rate for higher risk and add some contingency funds for unforeseen costs. It also is going to work good for the simulations to give us a wider picture of the risk. And overall, it's just going to help us make a smarter, more cautious budgeting decision. So the advantages of sensitivity analysis in capital budgeting. This strategy will highlight the key variables that will make or break the project and help identify the most important assumptions. Fosters educated decision making when things are uncertain and ensures investments are made based on data. Outlines clear paths that the project could potentially align with. Shines light on potential risks and allows for contingency planning to deal with them. empowers the stakeholders to have a transparent discussion about the risk and makes them feel more comfortable with the investment. And that's a really important thing to consider is the open discussion, and that everyone is there in a transparent manner talking about the risk. No one can go back and say that they weren't unsure or that they wish they would have been consulted on it. That transparency really goes a long way. And it's also going to encourage ongoing improvement of the projections and the refinement of the variables. As time goes on in actual practice, you're going to be able to hone in more on which assumptions are correct and what variables are most important. And so that's really going to help you moving forward. So this is going to give us a clearer view of what matters most in the project. It helps us spot the risky assumptions and make better decisions in times of uncertainty so that we can make the best plan for the ideal outcome. It's going to improve how we communicate with the stakeholders by showing the data visibly and transparently, and it keeps our team focused on the realistic, flexible planning that is going to help us the best. In summary, sensitivity analysis is a risk management technique that highlights pivotal variables. It combines the best aspects of qualitative and quantitative data based on initial assumptions and allows stakeholders to project financial results through simulations. It's going to empower the team members to have an open discussion about risks and share their expertise on the potential impact as well as solutions to those risks should something arise in the future. It's a cross-functional activity that is going to empower the stakeholders to create contingency plans based on the projections, and it is great with other simulations and techniques such as scenario analysis or like we were saying, the Monte Carlo simulation as well. And that is it. There's my references. Thank you for watching my video.